Everyone in the station had warned her, never look Matteo Romano in the eyes. He was the kind of man whose stare could strip away your strength, whose smile could ruin your career. But when Officer Ava Carter clapped the cuffs on his wrist that night, the notorious Mafia Boss didn't fight back. He just looked at her, calm, dangerous, amused, and said the words that made her heart stop. Rain fell like shards of glass over the darkened city, soaking through Ava Carter's uniform as she crouched behind her patrol car. The air was thick with tension, the kind that hummed just before something exploded. Her radio buzzed in her ear, the voice of her commanding officer sharp and steady. "Carter, he's in the warehouse. We've got confirmation. Matteo Romano is inside. You take the east entrance. Backup's 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. In her world, 2 minutes could mean life or death. Ava's hand tightened around her weapon as she glanced at the looming structure ahead, a warehouse that looked abandoned from the outside, but inside everyone knew it was the lion's den of the Romano family. For years, his name had been whispered like a curse among officers. Matteo Romano, a ghost who ran an empire built on blood and silence. No one had ever gotten close enough to touch him, until tonight. She exhaled and moved forward, her boots splashing through puddles. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. The kind of calm that only came from discipline, from burying fear deep enough that it forgot how to breathe. She reached the door, pushed it open slowly, and slipped inside. The scent of smoke and oil hung in the air. Shadows shifted between stacks of crates, and there he was, standing under a single flickering light, sleeves rolled up, talking quietly to 2 of his men. His voice carried easily, smooth and low, the kind that sent chills down your spine because it didn't need to shout to command a room. He turned his head slightly, and for the first time, Ava saw his face in person. Sharp lines, calm eyes, the faint trace of a smile that didn't belong to a criminal being hunted. "Police!" Her voice sliced through the silence, strong and unwavering. "Matteo Romano, you're under arrest." The men around him reached for their guns, but Matteo lifted a hand, stopping them. "Don't," he said calmly, his gaze never leaving hers. "It's over." The words threw her for a second. No fight, no chaos, no resistance. Just surrender. He turned toward her, his expression unreadable as she approached. Weapon trained, steady on his chest. "Hands behind your back," she ordered. He obeyed, slow and deliberate, as if this was all part of his plan. When her hand brushed his wrist to cuff him, his voice broke the silence, low, almost amused. "You're trembling." Her grip tightened on the cuffs. "I'm not." He turned his head slightly, his lips curving into the faintest smirk. "You are. Most people do when they get this close to me." "Maybe they do," she said coldly, snapping the cuffs shut. "But I'm not most people." He chuckled, a quiet, dark sound that made her pulse quicken. "No," he said. "You're not. That's why I think I want you to be mine." For a second, she froze. The words hit her like a bullet she hadn't seen coming. She forced herself to recover, pushing him forward toward the exit. "You have the right to remain silent," she said firmly. He walked easily, as though the cuffs meant nothing. The rain hit their faces as they stepped outside into the flashing blue lights. Dozens of officers aimed their weapons, but Matteo didn't flinch. He looked at Ava instead, his expression calm, almost admiring. As they guided him toward the waiting car, she heard him murmur, just loud enough for her to catch it. "I always knew the one to catch me wouldn't be a man." Ava looked straight ahead, refusing to meet his gaze. But somewhere deep inside, a shiver ran through her. Not from the cold rain, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Because for the first time in her career, she realized the most dangerous criminal in the city wasn't resisting arrest. He was studying her. The rain hadn't stopped by the time Ava pushed Matteo Romano into the back of the police car. He didn't resist. He moved like a man who was still in control, even with steel cuffs around his wrists. The dim streetlight caught on his wet hair, glinting off the faint smirk that never left his face. She slammed the door shut and exhaled, her breath fogging in the cold night air. Her fellow officers exchanged uneasy glances, not because of the arrest, but because of him. No one ever expected Mateo Romano to be caught alive. As the car rolled toward the precinct, silence filled the space between them, thick and charged. Ava sat beside him in the back seat, her weapon holstered but ready. The smell of rain and leather filled the air. Mateo leaned slightly forward, resting his cuffed hands on his knees, his voice quiet, steady. "You've done your homework, Officer Carter," he said, his tone laced with something dangerously close to admiration. She didn't look at him. "It's my job." He tilted his head, studying her profile. "Is that what this is for you? Just a job?" "Exactly that," she replied. A small smile played at his lips. "Then why are your hands still shaking?" Her eyes snapped toward him, cold and defiant. "They're not." He met her gaze and held it, unblinking, disarmingly calm. "You're a terrible liar," he murmured. "But I like that." Ava looked away, forcing her breathing to steady. She had dealt with murderers, traffickers, and smugglers before, but none of them looked at her the way he did, as if he could see through her uniform, through her defenses, straight into the pulse of her fear. She turned her face to the window, watching the city lights blur through the rain, but she could still feel his stare burning into her. When they arrived at the station, the moment she stepped out of the car, Mateo followed without needing to be pulled. Officers stopped what they were doing to watch. The great Mateo Romano, Rome's most feared man, being led through the precinct in cuffs. He didn't hang his head or curse, he smiled, and that smile made people move out of his way. Ava guided him into the interrogation room. The walls were gray, the lighting harsh. She sat across from him, her posture straight, hands folded on the table. He leaned back in his chair, wrists still cuffed, eyes fixed on her. "Tell me something," he said finally, voice low and smooth. "When you saw me in that warehouse, what did you feel?" "Focus on the questions, Mr. Romano," she replied, her tone clipped. He ignored that completely. "Fear? Excitement? Both?" Her jaw tightened. "You're not here to play games." "Neither are you," he said softly, leaning forward. "But you don't realize it yet. This isn't over." Ava's pulse quickened. "You're under arrest." "It is over." Mateo's eyes darkened, and his smile faded into something quieter, something that almost looked like truth. "No, officer, for you, it's just beginning." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Outside the room, detectives watched through the one-way glass, exchanging uneasy looks. Mateo sat back, completely calm, his gaze never leaving hers. Ava finally stood. "We'll continue this tomorrow," she said, her voice firm. As she turned to leave, he spoke again, almost gently this time. "Sleep well tonight, Ava?" She froze mid-step, not remembering if she'd ever told him her first name. Slowly she turned back toward him. He was smiling again. That same knowing, dangerous smile that sent a chill straight through her. And for the first time since she joined the force, Officer Ava Carter realized she might not be the one in control of this case. Because the man she'd arrested wasn't afraid of losing his freedom. He was already planning how to take hers.